This is part 6 of Historic Auto Attractions in Roscoe, Illinois. We are finally getting to the last exhibits of this massive museum, and we're moving on to even more presidential memorabilia in the White House exhibit. There are 4 tableaus containing furnishings that once graced particular rooms of the Executive Mansion. All of these were in the music room during various administrations. Several pieces are from the Kennedy years, but that music box was in the music room during the McKinley years. This is the Green Room, with a marble-top table and a coffee table from the Truman era, and an Eisenhower era chair and couch. The sideboard back there is also Truman. Here is the Blue Room, but the marble table was used in the War Room during FDR's time. The 3-piece set was in the Blue Room during the Eisenhower and Kennedy years. And that executive desk back there is from the Chester Arthur administration. The yellow chairs are also Kennedy. And this is the Red Room, with a Truman card table, Carter concert chairs that were used in the East Room. The red sofa and chair are from the Franklin Roosevelt years. This sofa was used by the Trumans for formal functions around the Rose Garden. And that chair is also from the Truman White House. The writing desk was gifted to the Eisenhower White House by the state of New York, and there's a Truman-era sideboard. That lamp was used at Camp David. These chairs were also used at that presidential retreat in Maryland. And there are plenty more presidential chairs. These furnishings were used by Theodore Roosevelt and his family at the White House. He was the first one to call the Executive Mansion the White House. This wooden dresser was used by First Ladies Mamie Eisenhower and Jackie Kennedy. The rocking chair was gifted to Cardinal Cushing by President Kennedy. The Cardinal was a longtime friend of the Kennedy family. The caneback chair was personally owned by President Eisenhower and used in the Oval Office. And next to it is a William Morris chair that was gifted to FDR. He kept it in his personal study. This is not a president's chair, but instead a chair of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He purchased this chair in 1966 to use in his Georgia cabin, where he wrote some of his final books and essays, like Where Do We Go From Here? And there's a wax figure of Martin Luther King Jr. This was the first mechanical sewing machine that was used in the White House. The newfangled technology arrived while James K. Polk was president in 1848, and this red couch was gifted by the state of California to President Eisenhower. It was appropriately placed in the Red Room. Here are some artifacts of the Johnsons, including one of Lyndon B. Johnson's suits. He was definitely a big guy. I would not want to be on the receiving end of the Johnson treatment. There are 3 of LBJ's hats, his watch, keychain, and an LBJ campaign hat. And this was Lady Bird Johnson's dress. This pink dress was also Lady Bird's, along with her gloves, shoes, glasses, hats, bracelets, and more. This is Rosalind Carter's dress and some Carter memorabilia. This was Richard Nixon's personal desk from the White House. Here are some Nixon artifacts, including some clothing of First Lady Pat Nixon. Here's one of her dresses alongside a suit worn by Richard Nixon. Pat Nixon wore that hat on an African safari. And there's a telephone and directory from the Nixon White House. That is a piece of wood from George Washington's original casket. These are some unusual painted life masks of George Washington and Rutherford B. Hayes. This is an authentic ticket to Andrew Johnson's impeachment trial. Now these were hot tickets back during the first presidential impeachment. Below the heads are some Nixon inauguration programs. Those are walking canes topped with the heads of Presidents Benjamin Harrison and William Howard Taft. There's Theodore Roosevelt's sterling silver spoon, and Zachary Taylor's razor. I believe relics of Taylor are the rarest presidential artifacts to find. This was Grace Coolidge's rose chiffon stole, worn by the fashionable First Lady of the Roaring Twenties. Alongside some First Lady autographs are 2 Indian Peace Medals from the James Monroe and John Quincy Adams administrations. Here is some Ronald Reagan memorabilia, including one of his suit jackets, along with a flag that flew at half-staff over the US Capitol on June 9th, 2004, a few days after he passed away. There's a Reagan presidential M&M box and a piece of the Berlin Wall. That's a George W. Bush inauguration program, and a flag that was signed by George H.W. Bush. Here's a collection of presidential pens. The presidents do get lots of custom pens. This pen was used by President John F. Kennedy to sign the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty in October of 1963, which prohibited the testing of nukes underwater, in the atmosphere, or in space, so that was really good. And these were JFK's gold writing pens, which he apparently used to doodle with. This pen was used by Ronald Reagan to sign the Social Security Amendment of 1983, and this flag flew over the White House. It was taken down at noon on January 20th, 1977, the exact time Gerald Ford's presidency ended and Jimmy Carter's began. Now entering the NASA Exploratory, a small space exhibit within historic auto attractions. This place really has everything. This is a replica Apollo command capsule, just like the ones that teams of 3 astronauts would stay in during the Apollo moon missions. These were clearly some very tight quarters. This is a recreation of the Freedom 7 capsule, which was piloted by Alan Shepard in the first US human spaceflight in 1961. This is a main landing gear tire of Space Shuttle Discovery. I have seen that space shuttle before. This was Gene Cernan's spacesuit glove from the Apollo 17 mission, worn on the moon. Cernan was the last man to walk on the moon thus far. Here's a miniature model of the Saturn V rocket sections. This was the flag that draped over astronaut Ted Freeman's casket during his burial at Arlington. He was expected to be an Apollo astronaut, but died in a plane accident in 1964, so he was technically the first fatality of the astronaut corps. This is a replication of Ham the chimpanzee's biopack couch. Ham was the first chimp to enter space in 1961 during a test to see if astronauts could really survive in space. The real one is at the New Mexico Museum of Space History, where Ham is also buried, and I have been there. There's a mini lunar lander and a mock-up lunar sample return container, which they would use to collect moon rock samples. And here are 7 simulated moon rocks, copies of those collected by Apollo astronauts. Now on to some movie and TV cars. The TV part of this exhibit has actually been downsized. This is a Back to the Future DeLorean time machine. Now there are a lot of these out there at different car museums. I think DeLoreans in their original condition are more rare now, since most have been turned into time machines. This one was not screen used in Back to the Future, but it's fun to see, and there are wax figures of Doc Brown and Marty McFly. This is the Flintstone-mobile from the 1994 live-action film, plus a police uniform from the sequel, Viva Rock Vegas. There are 3 Batmobiles here. The first one is a classic Batmobile from the 1960s Batman TV series. This was created by the legendary Hollywood car designer George Barris. He used the Ford Motor Company's abandoned Futura concept to make one of the most iconic cars in pop culture. This is the screen-used Batmobile from Batman Returns. Reportedly, every gadget on this car was fully functional, like the jet engine. And this is the Bat-Missile from Batman Returns, a thin version of the Batmobile. There's also creepy wax figures of the Joker and the Penguin. This is Ecto 1, or at least a replica of the Ectomobile from Ghostbusters. This is another controversial one. I don't believe this is a real screen-used car, as like the Back to the Future car, there's a lot of these out there. This 1964 Ford Galaxy Squad car was driven by Andy Griffith in The Andy Griffith Show. And this was Barney Fife's shirt, worn by Don Knotts in The Andy Griffith Show. Here is one of my favorites, the hideous Wagon Queen family truckster from National Lampoon's Family Vacation. I do love this movie. There is no dog leash attached to the back of the truckster. That's a missed opportunity. This is a full preserve set from the classic TV series Sanford & Son, featuring 2 screen-used costumes. And this is one of the 3 screen-used pickup trucks from Sanford & Son. Again, there used to be more to the TV section here in the original building, including lots of wax figures, which I believe they have since sold off. There is also an impressive Gone with the Wind display, featuring some fantastic costumes and props from the essential 1939 film. There's a screen-used mirror, along with some prop pillars, and a portrait of Rhett Butler that was at the movie's opening. This case contains some awesome relics, including Vivien Leigh's costume petticoat, a Confederate cavalry jacket, Clark Gable's costume shirt, along with a vest and a tuxedo coat he wore in the movie. This was one of Carole Lombard's dresses. There's some artifacts from the opening premiere, prop servingware from the film, Vivien Leigh's brooch and earrings, and her handkerchief. The final exhibit is the Animal Kingdom. There was a smaller taxidermy display here before, but now there's an entire chamber of dead animals right at the exit. Here's a polar bear, along with an Arctic wolf. This is the Alaskan brown bear. There's a wolverine, and a couple of smaller brown bears. And behind them is a harbor spotted seal. Those are pretty rare to see taxidermied. That's a king cobra strangling some rodents. They're of course very venomous. That's a rhinoceros mount. Here's a female lion, or lioness. And there's a sloth. Oh wow, that is a python. This one is 18 feet long. That's a baboon, standing next to this mighty ostrich. That is a taxidermied African bull elephant. It's absolutely amazing. This one is among the largest known bull elephants to have ever lived. It's over 10 feet high and 21 feet long, and it lived on a delta in Botswana. There's an alligator, and the head of a hippopotamus. And there are some critters in a canoe. This is a male African lion, a king of the animal kingdom, and of course they have no problem eating humans as well. On the opposite side, there are some American forest animals, like the deer, skunk, and pheasants. There's a stuffed possum, and a peacock, a gorgeous avian. Next to the turkey is a mighty Canadian moose. And that's a black bear. I do really like this taxidermy tableau. Looks like that vicious mountain lion has captured some prey. Here's a Persian ibex. There's a group of these that live in New Mexico. And there's a zebra. And finally, there's a towering taxidermy giraffe. So that concludes this tour of the newly expanded and renovated historic auto attractions. I didn't think this place could get any better, but they have certainly managed to do just that. Seriously, this is one of my favorite museums I've ever been to. The quality of the artifacts here is astounding, and many of the areas the museum focuses on are those that I am very interested in, so to me, this is basically the perfect museum. I cannot recommend visiting this place enough. If you like history or cars, then you are guaranteed to have a blast at Historic Auto Attractions. The museum is located just north of Rockford, Illinois, right before the Wisconsin state line, and it's right off Interstate 90 between Rockford and Madison, Wisconsin. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video and series, then please make sure to like this video, share it, and subscribe to my channel. Take a look at my arsenal of other videos featuring great museums like this, historic sites, roadside attractions, national parks, and more. Links to the other 5 parts of this Historic Auto Attraction series are linked in the video description. Thanks for watching.